I think we're ready. So I apologize for the delay. We'll call the Community Resources and Tourism Committee to order. We have Supervisor Vogel joining us via Zoom. And we are missing 2 of our committee members, but we have enough for a quorum. Is that correct? Wonderful. So to kind of get started, let's go do approval of the minutes.
I'll second.
And are there any changes or updates that anybody noticed to the minutes? If not, all in favor of approving the minutes as is, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Nope. And that passes. So let's see where we're at on our update. Do we have any public comments?
Yes, I have one that was submitted via email. And I just want to check if there's anybody here that was submitting. I think everyone's here for agenda. I will bring up the one from email online or on the screen, and then I will read it as well.
Okay.
Right, so it is from Terry Nichols, Town of Colfax. So Terry's comments are being involved with broadband for years now. I have noticed that UW Extension is not dedicated or even staff time at Dunn County. While staff has changed over the years, I see less and less involvement by Dunn County Extension. Having said that, I know other counties in the state that have Extension more involved. What I see is that the West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission has stayed the course. WCRPC needs to be supported. Also, there's an alliance between the organization called Momentum West and the WCRPC, which is called the West Central Regional Broadband Alliance. The WCRPC and Momentum West cover the same counties in West Central Wisconsin. There is a wealth of documents and information that has been accumulated with this alliance. While Momentum West focuses on bringing business and industry to the area, broadband is part of the business component as well. The idea of a county communication and PR person sounds like the missing link needed to fill in the blank, so to speak. The townships in this county have led the way when it comes to supplying dollars for broadband. At one time, the county took the lead, not the case anymore. I sense that the return of Addison Vang will not bolster broadband in what I think were high expectations. After stating all this, we must be sure to keep what the PSC, Public Service Commission, is doing, especially the State Broadband Office and grants. I read at the federal level, there may be federal dollars for what we call middle mile fiber, which could supply fiber in areas where it may help ISPs in areas of low population and not make sense business-wise for ISPs. I applaud Supervisor Quinn for staying the course and Supervisor Larry Bjork for asking the right questions. As a side note, the maps at the PSC are improving, but still need work.
Thank you, Terry, for the letter. Welcome, Supervisor Bjork.
Cool. Thank you,
And-
Mr. Chairman.
And I actually started the meeting late because I got stuck behind road construction. So
I
you,
got stuck between 924 girls getting calves ready for the fair.
oh, how about that?
I had to be the guy to push.
Well, seems appropriate then that we move on to extension with staff report, and we have a staff report from our extension educator.
Hi there. Thanks for this
Hello.
opportunity. I'm Sandy Tarter, the FoodWise Coordinator for Dunn, Chippewa, and Eau Claire counties. And on the screen, you see Joy Weisner, Nutrition Educator, and Jael Wolf, Nutrition Educator. They'll be joining me in this presentation. It normally be a quicker update, but I realized that we have a new Supervisor Barrier, and so it's a little bit of background to help understand the FoodWise program. So as you know, in Extension, we have 6 institutes, and within that, there are a number of programs. FoodWise is under the Health and Wellbeing Institute. Additionally, there is the Behavioral Health Program and HEAL, Healthy Eating, Active Living within Extension. So what is our challenge? Almost 1 in 9 Wisconsins face hunger or are in poverty. So that's about 11%. Here in Dunn County, we've always been higher poverty level than the state average. So we are at about 12.4%, 12.6, depending on the source. If though you look at within the Dunn County residents, we can pull out categories of people that number goes up. So if we just look at mixed races, it's up to 16%. If we look at our Asian community, our residents are Hmong, it's 21% poverty. If we pull out our Hispanic families in Dunn County, it jumps to 32%. And if you look at our Black African-American residents in Dunn County, it jumps to 46% poverty. Another group that is significantly high, up in the 40%, is our single-headed household, typically female. Our single females are with children are in the 40% poverty as well. In addition to that, we have the ALICE report. So ALICE stands for Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed. Here in Dunn County, that is 21%. So these are our working families who are still struggling. So if you think about it, you have to pay your housing, your mortgage, your rent, you have to maintain your car, you have to have childcare, you have to pay your medical bills and your prescription. And oftentimes what gets deleted or pulled from are the money spent on food. And so if you look at that 21% added to the 12% poverty, over a third of Dunn County residents are really struggling and food insecure. Other challenges, 2/3 of adults are obese and or overweight. And then we know that individuals and families with limited income are a higher percentage and greater risk for food insecurity and obesity. So what do? Well, we advance healthy eating habits in these ways. We expose children to tasting lots during our lessons, and we, of course, teach them why it's important to eat nutritionally, and fruits and veggies are important. As parents, it's our job to kind of provide a wide variety of fruits and vegetables and a wide variety of prepared in different ways for our children to eat. But low-income families, if they don't think their child's going to eat it, they won't buy it. So a lot of times when they come to our class, they'll taste something and they go home and say, you know what, I really like this. And then the family goes out to buy it. So sometimes that works in reverse. So we're teaching the parents how to plan, how to really economically buy and prepare those healthy meals. And economically, we're using limited resources. We're teaching them how, ways to be strategic about using their food dollars. And then, of course, we're in the communities, and you'll learn more about that. My work with our coalitions, our Health Done Right. So we're federally funded, as you know. We're the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. We are the education arm of that. And in Wisconsin, the SNAP program is called Food Share. So those terms are kind of used interchangeably. So when 2020 hit, we saw a 26% increase in Dunn County residents that are getting food share in the month. So that rose to 4,379. In 2021, that took another jump to 4,769. And then in 2022, these first 6 months, we've seen that it's gone down to about 2020 levels of individuals receiving food share. Okay, who do we teach? So youth in schools, after school, summer school programs in Dunn County, that is River Heights. They have to be over 50% free and reduced lunch participation rate in that school. So that's always been River Heights in Menominee. We saw that Downsville just crossed over. So they're at 51%. So this fall, we'll be reaching out to those teachers and principal to see if they would like us to come into their classrooms. And let's see, Colfax is close, but not quite there. And in Tiffany Creek Elementary in Boyceville, we used to program there, but they've fallen under that 50% mark. So we don't go there anymore, unfortunately. We can also reach the parents or caregivers of those children of those eligible schools. It includes Head Start, WIC participants, food pantry participants, seniors, maybe in low-income housing units and or congregate meal sites are among seniors as well. And then adults in transition and shelters and so forth. So we teach My Plate nutrition, basic general healthy eating patterns, and then the importance of physical activity. So reducing sedentary lifestyles, reducing screen time. How do we get families out and active in our communities and playing? Food resource management. So we're really starting from menu planning, budgeting, strategic food shopping, to price comparisons, using those food dollars wisely, and food preparation and cooking. Of course, food safety is included in that. As all extension programs, we center our work around equity. So as you see here, of course, equality is not equity. In the top line, everybody gets the same bike, right? But it only fits one person. In the bottom row, everybody gets what they need so that they can thrive. We could take that one step further if we think about justice. If we're using this analogy, okay, everybody's got a bike, but are there sidewalks? Do all the low-income housing have the same capability to ride a bike as our more affluent areas? Can you go ahead? This is a video I'd like to show you of our colleagues. They do exactly the same thing in our programs, and it shows.
I'm always struggling with my kids to feed them, trying to look for choices that they like. I have a really picky 6-year-old, which I struggle so much just to get them anything in, like veggies and fruits.
Everybody really wants what's best for themselves and for their family, right? Nobody wants to intentionally hurt their own body or intentionally hurt their family or make poor choices.
Money is the #1 barrier for exercising, for eating healthy, because these are the families that don't have money to shop for organic foods or fruits or veggies or have a membership, because that's an extra bill that maybe that family can't afford.
Communities shape our health, so if we don't have access to healthy food in our communities, that's definitely one thing that influences our health. And if your community has a mindset of being healthier and is a safe place for people to play outside and be active, your communities have a lot of direct impact on individuals and families' health.
This is not my first time going through the FoodWise program. It gives us an opportunity to learn something new. It teaches my daughter healthier habits earlier on. We feel good about being armed with knowledge to share with our families, to try to make better lives for them.
We offer educators that work at all different levels of development, from early childhood all the way up through seniors. We do senior programmings. We offer so many different services and so many different opportunities for communities to come together.
The secret to the FoodWise success is that we are meeting people where they're at. We're working with parents and kids together, because that's what it looks like at home. At home, you're not cooking with your kids being watched by a babysitter, you're cooking with your kids with you. So we're trying to recreate that environment in a place that's familiar. That's where the action happens.
We help to make the healthy choice an easy choice for families by empowering individuals with the knowledge on how to make simple shifts in their choices in feeding their family. At a school level, we may be working with school wellness teams to implement different policies to help children be healthier, whether that's having more activity during their day or having more fresh fruits and vegetables during school lunches. And then at a community level, we work with community partners and coalitions to have that larger impact.
With our policy and systems and environment work, we're contributing to things like economic security, and we're increasing the availability of healthy foods. Ideally, we're increasing behavior change among the kiddos and the adults that we're doing nutrition education classes with. So in theory, they're becoming healthier. Their kids, they're becoming healthier adults because of the things that they learn in our direct education.
I think a lot of what makes FoodWise successful is how we work out in the community with our partners. We live in these places, we know these people, we work with these people. So it's really easy to meet them where they're at and better coordinate with our community partners to make sure that people are actually getting access to the resources that they need.
This program has taught me that I can do a lot of things that I didn't think I could do. It has helped me to succeed. It helped me a whole lot. It's making me a whole lot more mobile. My doctor said I'm doing great with my legs. He said whatever I'm doing, I need to continue it.
I love hearing stories when people come back and say, hey, when I was in your class, I learned this. One time a mom came up to me and said, after you showed me how much sugar was in that soda, I don't buy soda at my house anymore. That's wonderful, that's great. Just think about the impact that that could make on the health of that family.
Joy's going to join us now and talk about some more details on our programs.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having us tonight in your meeting. So I'll speak a little bit about the youth curriculum or the youth work that we do. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Thank you.
Great. So we are in the classrooms at River Heights Elementary, like Sandy mentioned. We do first grade and third grade nutrition. We've also gone to the Dunn County Head Start building and reached the kiddos there in the third grade and fourth grade classrooms. And we've also done some work this summer, and we're doing it right now with the Boys and Girls Club at River Heights. And then you see Nancy Fastener here on the screen where it says and virtual. She's teaching a teen cuisine class when we were virtual during the COVID times to teenagers at the Boys and Girls Club. She was teaching kitchen safety. And so we use state approved curriculum to teach all those classes, and we have a lot of fun hands-on lessons to get the kids engaged in learning about nutrition. So here's the summer programming. I jumped ahead. Garden with the Boys and Girls Club, and we've been trying things like we did some salads with kale and spinach, strawberries. Then we tried some rhubarb compote with yogurt, Greek yogurt last week. And this week we're going to be bringing some broccoli and trying like a broccoli salad with the kids at the Boys and Girls Club. So lots of fun. And we're hearing things like, wow, I would eat that rhubarb again. Or, you know, I'm going to ask my parents to buy broccoli, that kind of thing. So it's a lot of fun.
We also teach other adults. So you'll see food pantries. I won't play that video, but Nancy, who can't make it tonight, she did at least three videos that were given to the pantry, who they then could just see how to use some of those pantry foods during COVID when they couldn't come into the pantry lessons, you know. We also work with workforce resource. Joy, do you want to share on that?
Sure. So we got into workforce resource in Dunn County right before, probably 2019, right before COVID hit. And we were able to do a series of lessons called Healthy Sense. And that's a really awesome curriculum that has really hands-on lessons teaching people how to stretch their food dollars. And we have tried to offer some virtual classes, and we will try that yet before the summer is over, or go back in person if they'd like to have us in person too.
Mm-hmm. And in February, March of 2020, I started lessons with our Hmong seniors. So much fun. They were very engaged. They asked great questions. We did a lot of food safety and identification of foods. So we'll go back to that. And then Bridge to Hope, we just toured. I took our interns, I and Libby, and we went and toured that on Friday. So that is our game plan, that we will, of course, offer classes to the individuals there at Bridge to Hope and or those that come to their outreach classes. Strong Bodies. All
right, Strong Bodies. We've been doing Strong Bodies virtual as well, but then in the fall of earlier this year, we were able to offer a session at the Shirley Doan Center right there in Menominee. And it was so popular that we added two classes. So we had an AM session and a PM session, and we had so many people sign up. So that was an awesome thing. And then we still offer it statewide virtually. And I feel like we're like around 60 participants statewide that come on and do Strong Bodies with us. So yeah. We do, oh, sorry, Sandy.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna say in the winter of like 250 participant signups, there were 45 Dunn County residents who joined that virtual. And then in the spring virtual, we had 35 Dunn residents. Back in the Shirley Doan Center, we had 50 signed up. So that was really very popular. Yep. Jael, do you want to share about your nutrition chats?
Sure. So one of the things that we would like adding at the end of our strong body training is a nutrition portion. So we teach these very short 10 to 15 minute lessons. And usually we chat about things that are quick but are very important. For example, we have talked about leftovers and how to bring new life to our leftovers so we can use them in a healthy way. We can also sometimes talk about hydration. That is very important because most of the population of our Strong Bodies participants are senior people. So we have been teaching them how when you're over 60, your thirst mechanism kind of stops working. So we want them to be very aware that they have to be drinking enough fluids, especially during summer months and winter months, and when we are doing some physical activity. And we also talk about how it's important our calcium intake and how to read nutrition labels, among other things. And something that is really cool is that we're going to start a Strong Body pilot in Spanish. So right now we're trying to recruit leaders and champions from our communities. The training is going to be August 11th and is going to be held in Stevens Point. So this is going to be paid, and we're trying to find 2 leaders per county, and they're going to have also a stipend per session. So right now the pilot has enough money, the grant, for 2 sessions. Each session is like 10 weeks, and each week we'll be teaching 2 times.
Nice. Thank you. We teach caregivers of young children. So here you see Nancy, she's at the farmer's market, both Chippewa on the left, Dunn County on the right. And in the middle, we did our own, like you saw in the video, our kids in the kitchen, fun family cooking. And here's a shot from that, a photo from that. So as I mentioned, we're really trying to make connections in our community. And one way I chair the chronic disease prevention team under Health Done Right Coalition. I chair the chronic disease prevention team under the CHIP Coalition, and I'm super active in the Eau Claire Healthy Communities. Last year, we started the summer activity passport because we wanted just to come knowing that, you know, everybody in all 3 counties needed to get outside and be active. And so that summer activity passport, if you want to bring that up, if you have it, Michelle. It gets people outside we promoted in all 3 counties, the parks, the trails, the pools, everything. And if you go there and you take a picture and upload it to a link that we provide in the QR code, you get your name into a drawing. And so last year we had about 80 people, and they drew everybody, each county, and everybody, and we made sure somebody from Dunn County got a prize as well. And if you can scroll down, it works. So you'll notice that we have things that are opportunities in all 3 counties, and then under every category we list here, go to this link in Eau Claire, go to this one in Dunn, go to this one in Chippewa. So just incentives for people to get out and be active. And this year we added geocaching. So I've been out searching and hiding our Health Done Right buttons. So these are going all around Menominee. If people find these, again, the QR code is here. Upload a picture where you are in that location, and they get their name and a prize. Because we're chronic disease prevention, we are promoting know your numbers, your blood pressure, do your pre-diabetes assessment, risk assessments. And so we got some funds from the diabetes regional program to add some prizes as well. But that's the point, is to really like prevention of chronic disease. And yep. Oh, thanks. And then the last one I just want to share with our farmers market. So we started the EBT as Food Share, so it's kind of synonymous, but EBT is the electronic based transfer. So Food Share benefits are downloaded to a card that are swiped. And so we started the EBT program at Menominee Farmers Market around 2000, I don't know, 18, somewhere in there. And it slowly grew. Well, in 2020, we had about 1,800 SNAP food share sales. And then I got to stop talking my hands and start clicking here. Last year, we got Community Foundation provided money to Health Done Right, trickled down to our team, chronic disease prevention team, and we were able to start the match program. So for up to $10 per market, if they swiped their card, they bought $10 of tokens, we'd match. We'd give them another 10. So they walked away with $20 worth of tokens. So we, in the end, we had $3,500 of that match in 2021. Well, and actually the sale. So because of that $10 incentive, people loved it. They kept coming back and back, and the word spread. So we went from $1,800 of SNAP sales in 2020 to what, 8,000, can't see my numbers, and 85, 83. Thanks. In the SNAP sales, plus the 3,500. So now we're up to, $13,000 that we've infused into the market. This year, we were able to get grants from Mayo Health System and Marshall Clinic, and we got $6,000 just for that match. So we've been really getting the word out and pushing that along too. So people have expressed their appreciation for this program, and we're definitely increasing food security during this time. That is it. Any questions for Joy, Jael, or myself? We're happy to take them.
Any questions from the committee? Comments?
Well,
Supervisor Bjork?
am I on?
You are.
Sandy, I've kind of been critical of you guys, and you answered some questions today that I didn't know.
Good.
And I always felt that you seem to be too centered in just one part of Dunn County with River Heights and the farmers market, stuff like that. And I guess I was unaware of the income criteria because I think people are hungry in Colfax and Connorsville and probably even Boyceville. And my concern comes out of this because every year, when it comes around and the government is putting together the farm bill, and they talk about the farm bill, and they talk about this individual that's rich that gets all the money and all the people like me don't get a dime. And I've just learned to live with it. But it's different living with government. Oh, and so in any way, the farm bill, I've always been told that the majority of it goes to food programs. And the reason the majority of it goes to the food programs, because if you put together something in Congress that just goes money back to agriculture and agriculture districts, you're going to get zilch support. But if you're doing food programs, then you get you might even get somebody from Madison to support in the Congress a farm bill. So my point is, I don't write the laws, and I know I don't. I follow the government programs. I turn in my crop acreage, and I do everything I can. And right now, my crops are getting ready to die, and there is no safety net unless you have farm insurance, farm crop insurance, which is subsidized by the Farm Bill. Okay, so poor Larry, his crops dies. That's a whole lot different than poor Sally, whose kids are hungry and they don't know what they should buy. So it just really pees me off that the federal government funds food programs, but then they throw in a level, well, you can't go to Colfax because they didn't have the certain amount of things, but you still got hungry kids there. And you can't go to Connorsville, and you can't go to Boyceville, and it's a federal program with federal dollars. So, excuse me for being a little upset, but see, I think what you do is really important, even though I've been hard on you because I didn't think you've been out where you should be. In all the areas that you should be. And I mean, the kind of report that I'd like to hear was every week we met with a group of parents or children in the county. You know what I'm saying? You know, not once a month. Every week we're able to find 6 people to sit down and listen to our program. Well, you know, it probably not going to change because I'm still not going to get any government aid for my crops that are burning up, and they probably aren't going to change the rules and regulations on where you can go and where you can't go. But there's a lot of area in Dunn County right behind you where my wife once was a Head Start coordinator, and you know, she had plenty of parents that needed and would learn from what you're talking about. So I support your program. I'm just a little P.O. to the federal government that they say you can't go where you should go. Over and out.
Thanks. I take your comments as interest, you know, and support. So I get a little frustrated myself sometimes. So we do what we can. We're everywhere we can be, or we try to offer it everywhere that we possibly can be. And if Colfax, we get the Head Start, but if their school turns over 50%, you can bet we'll be knocking on their door.
I know you will.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, go ahead.
And thanks, Sandy, and thanks for the time. I want to just kind of double down on the comments about systematic pieces of the program. And I don't want to lose sight of we have the direct ed that Sandy and the team engage in, but she talked about the PAC work, policy systems and environmental change. And to your point, Supervisor Bjork, right, we have to live within these parameters, and what can we do to help others understand that sometimes those parameters through those policies, through those systems, are not conducive to meeting the needs of everybody. And so that's the work that Sandy engages in that PAC work, to open some of those eyes of like, yep, we're constrained to some of these parameters, but there's more that we can do. Should we be able to adjust the system, adjust that policy to get at your point? So I don't want to lose that, because that is a pivotal piece that FoodWise across the state engages in, to get those elected officials. Like, do you realize that the policies that you're implementing do not afford us the opportunity to work with these people that's so needed as well? And so they're knocking on their doors too. And so I just wanted to make that it was in the presentation, but I don't want to highlight that to your point there. And it's well taken. I take it as great feedback too for Sandy and other folks within FoodWise, take back and say, this is why we need to continue to invest in some time. It's not all of our time, but to see those policies through, because you're right, there's so many more that could be served if we tweak some of those things that way. So thank you for that feedback.
Supervisor Quinn.
Yeah, thanks for a great presentation. I was fascinated by the fitness class in Boyceville and the success you had with that, the number of participants you had. Why do you think that was the case? What need did that address that so many people came to it?
Yeah, so the fitness was the Shirley Doan Center here in town. Well, we're coming off of pandemic, so they were so grateful to be back in person and to have that connection. And that's why our virtual was so popular. So people had a connection over the course of when they're, stuck in their homes. And that's why the nutritional chats are really important too. And they like to stay after. They don't just come on for exercising. They stay after, we chat about nutrition topics. But yeah, they came out in force for the Shirley Doan Center.
What's
seniors.
going forward? What are we going to do with that program?
Yeah, so 2 individuals were trained in strong bodies through the Shirley Doan Center, so they're going to continue on offering that.
Okay.
So what we like to do is go in, show them what can be done, help get people trained. Jael mentioned about getting Spanish speakers trained so that they can offer to their communities. So that's what we do. Yeah, so they're going to continue that strong bodies program at that center.
Seems like it's not just the physical, but also the social engagement that they get.
Exactly.
And also, it's really encouraging to see the increased use of EBT at the farmers markets. I mean, it's always been a sort of frustrating that more of our lower income citizens don't feel comfortable utilizing the farmer's market. So you're not only giving them access to it by financial assistance, but you're making them feel comfortable, probably kind of empowering them in a little way to get out and enter in a social space they're not used to going to. That's really good work. Appreciate that very much.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah, any other questions for Sandy? Supervisor Vogel.
Thank you, Chairman. So great presentation. Very interesting information. And I'm always a little shocked by the statistics you gave at the beginning about the 1 in 8 in Dunn County and the 21% strapped, income wise. I don't know, has the extension explored, like, what is it in Dunn County, or like, why do we have such a high poverty over, the rest of the state average?
I think the rural counties tend to be a little bit higher, possibly. And, we do mapping so we can kind of tell where our low income individuals live in the county. There's that capability. So I don't know if I can tell you exactly why that is, but I can tell you that we're identifying who they are or where they live, so we can try to outreach a little bit better, to offer our services. So any other thoughts why? I don't know. I think partly too, I should say, is that the food pantry has over 1,500 to 1,600 families per month that they serve. And part of that I've heard is some seasonal employment, some employment with no benefits. Of course, the pandemic impacts everybody, but I think that might be a little bit part of that too, where I said everybody's using their dollars just to maintain their housing, their cars, their, daycare. Yeah, so that, I guess that safety net of, I guess want to say, is a food pantry, WIC, Head Start is just vital to keep people above that poverty line, because they for sure are struggling.
Thank you.
I don't know if that really answered your question, but
Jason, did I see you had a thought or?
yeah.
Yeah, I just to say Sandy did a good job of synopsizing what we currently do. Organizationally, it's not just for Dunn County, but statewide. We take current either census data or the American Community Survey data that's done, is it every other year or every year, to really look at where those individuals are based upon census tracts and census data. And so we do outreach to them, and a part of it also is we know that, and I can say this, in Clark County is top 3, and one of the primary counties that I serve. They're in the top 5. I think they're in top 3 of poverty too. And so the conversations we've been having is, we know where they are and we know what they're dealing with, and we can outreach to them. But some of them, how do I say this? I mean, they have a lot of pride and they don't want to utilize resources. And so that's, I think, part of it too. And so we try to make our services available to them, educate them, like, we're here to help, should they want to receive that help. So
thank you.
Just, with regard to the question that Ann asked too, it's hard to, I don't think we got good numbers on this, but I think when I first moved to Dunn County, the rural economy was based on a multitude of small dairy farms that were operated by practically every farm in the county. And that led to jobs in small towns and services in small towns. And boy, you look around the countryside today and that's changed. That's no longer there. So that is a spillover effect on the larger rural economy. And one of the reasons why rural areas maybe have not held up quite as well as the economy has gone forward. So point that out.
Anything else? Anybody else for Sandy? Not, thank you for your report.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to Jason, our interim area extension director.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple updates that I wanted to share under kind of the area director report. A couple highlights for you. And again, the other thing I want to just kind of one last thing on the FoodWise program. I think I often get questions in my primary role is what is the cost of the county on the FoodWise program. And so the SNAP Ed dollars, and I think Supervisor Bjork did a good job of like understanding the farm bill and how it kind of comes down. The question I get asked too is like, what is the true cost of the county? And the true cost of the county is an office, a computer, keeping the lights on and the heat going and that sort of thing. And actually just this last month, and this comes full circle, is that Corp Counsel Nick Lang has signed the annual agreement. There's an annual agreement that basically says by getting the services of Sandy and Joy and Jael and other educators to come in and do the work and all the supplies and expenses that go with the program to do that, it's basically saying we're going to give them a space, keep the lights on, the doors open, and that sort of thing. So that agreement was just signed this last month, and I thank Corp Counsel Lang for the support to that, to keep that program going and keeping FoodWise here in Dunn County. So that's an update for this last month. The 4-H position. So I shared at the last meeting, and actually I see Luisa's in the back. She's transitioned her role from the 4-H educator to a human development and relationships educator position. The 4-H position is posted and we're actively recruiting for that. So if you know anybody that's interested in applying for that position, it's open until the 17th of this month. So next week it will close. I know we do have some applicants in there. I haven't had a chance to wade through that and see what that's like. So that's good. So if we're moving forward with that. I'm optimistic that we'll have somebody on staff by September 1. Closes the 17th. It gets actually Dunn County Fairs the following week or week and a half. And so I will actually be not working that week because I'll be at the fair with my own children. So that'll put me behind a little bit, but I'm optimistic by September 1, we should have and by hopefully the September CRT meeting, have somebody to be able to introduce to you at that time. Some of you supervisors may get the WCA updates, and you may have noticed in the last, end of June, middle of June, excuse me, or first part of June, there was a request for steering committee members for a newly launched steering committee of WCA, which the steering committee is the UW-Madison Extension and Education Steering Committee. There were board supervisors from around the state were asked to apply if they want to be on the steering committee. That closed the 1st of July. And I talked to WCA board president Lance Plimmel, who actually is in Wood County, which I work with, and said that they've staffed that steering committee. And so that'll be moving forward. So should you have feedback I have not seen the names announced, but if you have feedback on extension, there is a committee of WCA within WCA now that is working with extension across the state and kind of being that liaison and feedback loop with those two parties. So I want to make that is available to you all as board supervisors. The other thing, so I am in an interim role. And I do know the AED position is actively being kind of screened right now. It closed last week, I believe. And so they're moving forward with that position. I don't have a timeline. I'm guessing that it's kind of the same timeline as the 4-H position, that September 1 onboarding piece. So hopefully by this meeting in September, there'll be a permanent hire there too. I wanted to just briefly update on the broadband. I know Terry Nichols from Colfax, and I've actually had the pleasure when I was an educator here in Dunn County of working with Terry on broadband, and so I know him very well, and he's a very passionate individual, and so I thank him for his comments, and those comments have been received by me, and while I don't have any concrete operational things to share, I can tell you that we have the Governor's Task Force on Broadband Access released their 2022 annual report just today. We have extension individuals and staff members that are on that task force. And so to Terry's individual Nichols feedback about extension educators being involved in this across the state, he's accurate. I have had a conversation with Addison Vang about what that would look like with him and his involvement in broadband moving forward. Again, no concrete operational things to share with you this evening, but I wanted you to know that I'm actively engaging in those conversations and how they would impact Dunn County And knowing that broadband access is not defined by county lines, but what does this truly mean from that regional perspective? And so that is still on my radar, and I'm actively having those conversations. But I would invite you to look at that Governor's Task Force on Broadband Access report, and what that will kind of lead into PSC grant funding and those sort of things, and how counties can be involved in that space moving forward. So that said, the last thing I wanted to draw your attention to in the packet is the resolution, and it's on pages 8 and 9 and 10, I believe, or 9 and 10. Resolution 14, dated February 17th, 2016. And so over the last few weeks, I've had a conversation with Facility Director Scott. Is it called the county house? Is that what it's referred to? I don't know what it's called. It's the one behind where facilities was at. Facilities has now moved back in the building here. And so at a facilities meeting, Michelle help me out, it was 2 months ago, a month and a half ago, whatever. There was conversation within facilities about renting that out, having somebody else come in and take that space. And so knowing that Katie Wantock has transitioned to a state position, we also have, we've had for the last how many, 4 years, Stacy Evans, who is a state operational support staff, working with FoodWise actually now. She's a state appointment based in the office here. And there are other regional educators that are looking for office space. And so when I was an educator back in 2016, this came through as we went through the next gen reorganization. And so at the time, the CRT committee, then it went through board approval that they wanted to express their support to be a regional hub of extension. If there's any regional specialists, state specialists that can be housed here in Dunn County, why shouldn't we capitalize on that? So talking with Scott and actually with Corp Counsel Lang about what that would look like for extension. There are 6 offices in there. There's interest on behalf of extension to a partnership with the county in that. Dollars and cents wise, that hasn't been kind of ironed out, and that will be forthcoming as things roll. But I do know Lauren, she changed her last, Lauren Larson now. She's a natural resources educator out of the Eau Claire office. She may be looking for a new office, a closed door office. So we bring in some natural resources state specialists. Would be having Katie and Stacy and those sort of folks to really have that as a hub and be that resource there. So I think it's a win-win for both extension. We are greatly interested in this, and also with the county, that residual benefit. Again, there would be the county would come out ahead. We'd pay rent and for that space, and you get the residual impact of having Katie still be in the county here, and again, should be serving the county anyway in a state perspective. But I just want to draw your attention to that. Those are ongoing conversations that I'm having. And I think it's truly a win-win. One, the county finds somebody to occupy that space and utilize it as it's currently structured. And then the residual benefit of educators coming to Dunn County. So that's the update I have for this evening. Under that, I know it's a lot. It's been an active month here. Oh, and if I may, I want to make a shameless plug, and I realize this. Clark County is hosting Farm Technology Days. I serve Clark County. I was there today volunteering, so I apologize for kind of looking a little run down. I was in the youth tent doing a grain bin simulation of like getting trapped in grain bins, and the eye-opening experience for our young people and farm safety. So I'll be back there tomorrow. So if you're looking for something to do tomorrow or Thursday, just south of Loyal, Rail Acres and Rustic Occasions. It's been many years in the making, and so I invite you all to Clark County for Farm Technology Days. And yeah, so there. Thank you.
Thanks for the update, Jason. And I wasn't aware of that 2016 resolution about potentially serving as a hub, but boy, I think that would be just a huge benefit to the county, just because of the proximity of having people still here, and being that that hub would be a a great thing. So yeah, keep us up to date. Anybody else have questions for Jason? Nobody?
I just got one wisecrack. They have offices with doors.
Supervisor Bjork, there are offices with doors. We have, that was one of the big things too. So yeah, thank you.
All righty. So thank you. And we're going to move on. Item 6 on the agenda. Don't really have a huge update on the Visit Dunn County website.
Chairman Zons, if I may. Sorry,
Yes.
there was item 5C.
Oh.
The ag staffing update, if I may.
I thought that was we were.
Oh, no, I
had
wanted to
briefly touched on it, but okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of tackle that a little bit more if you.
Sure.
So I mentioned at the last meeting that I was going to be connecting with Heidi Johnson, who's the Ag Institute Director, on a staffing plan for Dunn County Ag. Also because she's involved in a lot of different things with farm technologies and that sort of thing. She didn't have a concrete operational piece for me to share with you this evening on a permanent solution. I don't have that. What I do have is the interim solution. So from now moving forward, until I have that kind of locked down, Lissa Seafelt, who's the dairy and livestock educator out of Eau Claire County, and Jerry Clark, who's the crops and soils educator in Clark County, will be providing direct backfill, Chippewa, thank you, to Dunn County. So you have all of your proverbial ag arenas covered, dairy and livestock, crops and soils, especially when we get to, harvest season and those sort of things. So and actually I talked to Jerry just before he's going to a national conference this week, and just to kind of double down with him and Lissa on this, and that's the solution there. There's also, again, Katie's coming back, and not that she's gonna totally skirt if somebody calls her and ask some questions, she'll be able to help them out. She is a Dunn County resident and would be happy to do that. So I know that's the solution right now. Long term, there's conversations about a kind of a regional perspective of ag specialty, meaning can we hire somebody that specializes in crops and soils and dairy and livestock that would serve Dunn County together on a regional perspective. So instead of one educator, you actually might get 2 educators with more focused specialties in those 2 areas, like a Lissa, like a Jerry. I don't know what that looks like right now, but those conversations are being had right now. There's a lot of moving and shaking. There's some county educators like Katie that have taken these state appointments, and now it's opened the door for a larger conversation systematically about where staffing is holistically around the state. A quick example is Bill Halfman from Monroe County is now taking a state appointment to be the beef specialist. They've offered a position to a swine specialist. So a lot of moving pieces. And at the time I talked to Heidi, she couldn't make heads or tails of where, there's a little, pun intended on that, heads or tails of where that would be in the next month to 2 months. But right now, that is the coverage plan. So people are, and Michelle is being the kind of the one to send them to the right places. So yeah,
you got a lot of change you're dealing with, a lot of balls in the air.
Yep, and I'm not a juggler, but man, I keep things afloat. I sure hope I am. So yeah. Thank you.
Any questions? Any additional questions for Jason based on the ag educator update? Nope. Okay. Now we'll move on to 6. Again, not a huge update on the Visit Dunn County website. Dave's been getting the developer's been getting not a huge amount of information, so I'm kind of pushing him in a different direction, and I'll kind of hopefully share that at our next meeting. So we'll move on to 7, consideration of actions to be taken by the committee, and we're finally ready to deal with the library's budget. And since we have a library people here, do any of you want to share anything with us since you happen to be here? Or?
I know that the information that we looked at in the packet that was available for the leveling from the county did not have accurate numericals.
Yeah, you're going to have to, why don't you come up to the mic, because we have one commissioner who is on Zoom and she won't be able to hear you.
Just to that point, the paper version on the desk is an updated version, but Supervisor Vogel does not have that if you want to comment.
Yes, there's here, right here.
Hello, I'm Jolene Stirk, the Director of the Menominee Public Library, and this is Lisa from Colfax Public Library.
Hello.
And you've done this before many, many times, and the state requirement is that Dunn County fund as a reimbursement request at 70% of our total cost of services that were provided in 2021 for the 2023 budget. Of course, we would prefer that you support us at 100%. Given the programs, the collections and services that we've already talked about at prior full county board meeting this spring.
Right.
So here's the updated figures, and I'm just going to pull up ours. Yep, that looked right. It was erroneously printed that we were requesting in excess of $580,000 when actually we only want $504,000 for Menominee. So that looks better.
That's a big difference.
Yeah. But it's been interesting listening to this meeting in particular because I work with Sandy on the Health Done Right Coalition and just commend her for the wonderful work that Extension does to include, yes, Menominee, because that's where you're centered, but really for all residents of Dunn County, and libraries are much the same way. We're trying to promote tourism. We're trying to promote economic development. We're trying to promote healthy citizenship and people that are engaged in their communities. So I just would make the point again that libraries are still really vital in Dunn County and everywhere.
Yeah, and it's interesting to be here at a meeting like this. As long as I was coming to this building, I picked up a box of the Health Done Right flyers because we're a distribution point. I also have COVID tests. Again, we distribute those through the library. And then talking about, like hunger in Colfax was mentioned. We do have food in the basement of the building that we can give out when it becomes apparent to us that someone's hungry. We also, there's a pop-up food pantry that makes it to town too, but we're working with, what's the name of the food pantry?
Stepping Stones.
Stepping Stones is the one who's provided us with the bags of food to give people. And I just gave out 2 of those bags about a week ago. So it's just, we're trying to work together too to,
Support the work that all of these
support
other
these things.
organizations are doing. Yeah.
Yep. And the amount of money that at least that Colfax is requesting is more than it was last year, but that reflects library usage. We have had more people than ever using our services. I think coming out the other side of COVID, we just really made connections with people. They appreciated what how we were reaching out to them and the things that we did to try to still stay connected with these families, even when there were barriers. We maintain those relationships, and we were a trusted source in the community. And we really tried to convey a health message during that time too. And we knew that, Dunn County was getting a little bit of flack, for the health message at different points. I could see that comments left on there after KT's reports and things like that. But because they know us at the library, we were not getting that kind of negative feedback in Colfax. So I think we help people get that message it really helps to have people right there in their community that they can talk to and look in the eye. So anyway, we're asking for more money, but I hope that you agree it's worth it.
Thank you. Just for perspective, what did we do last year? I'm trying to remember.
100%.
Okay. That's what I thought.
And it was 70% for the other counties that were seeking reimbursement.
Do any of the supervisors have any comments or questions or thoughts about the library funding requests?
I think we should support the request to 100%. I'm willing to make that motion to start the discussion.
Anybody second that?
Certainly second.
Seconded. And any discussion about it?
Well, I guess what hits me the most, Mr. Chairman, is that, they are a trusted resource that's been there before. And families evolve and families change and little kids become bigger kids. But there's always new people trying to find their way. And it would seem to me that the library in the communities would be a good place to kind of find your way. So I wholeheartedly support it. I haven't been wanting to spend that much money in the past. Yeah, so you've convinced me, and I'm sometimes hard to convince.
That's okay. We like a challenge.
I'll verify that.
All right, so we've had a motion and a second to fund the libraries at 100%.
Just a clarification, is that to fund the Dunn County libraries at 100%?
Yes.
Well, I think it's all, my intended to be all the entire library request. But
So both in and out of
I
county.
thought we were dealing with kind of all of them together. Am I wrong?
And then the 70% joining counties, is that right? Is that how it goes? I mean,
We're required to do 70%. It's up to us whether we want to do 100%.
So yeah, you're asking about Dunn County libraries, okay, yeah.
Do we want to separate that into two motions?
No, well, yeah, we have to, I guess. If so my motion would be that we support Dunn County libraries at 100%.
And that was what Larry already seconded, and we've had discussion. And if are all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm only assuming Anne is there.
Aye.
There she is. I didn't know if you did you have any comments, because we couldn't see you while we had the document up on the screen. So I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add to the discussion.
No, I think we should support them at 100%. And I think some of the file might have had some numbers that didn't quite add up. So I think the total circulation might have been 175,000 and county residents were that 88.
Yes.
And so like a half of circulations are, county residents that aren't. So I think that's great that the county residents are using all the libraries. So.
Fabulous. So is there a motion about the out of county library funding request? What did we do last year for that?
70%.
70%? Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor
I'd like to make a
Bjork?
motion
Yes.
that we fund the out of county libraries at 70% as required by state.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, none, passes. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. And we will move on to item 7B, which is outside agencies, and that's to talk about funding for the Dunn County Economic Development Corporation. I don't know if Bob's here. Yes.
The red one?
Yes.
Yeah, I would expect it green.
Oh,
All right, well, I'll tell you what, a couple of things. By the way, Bob Bassani, Dunn County Economic Development Director, Executive Director. A couple of things. Number one, I had talked to the county clerk, Andrew Mercel, and he had indicated that he had sent that form out, I don't know, May or June. I don't believe I got it. Okay. However, I think it was probably sent to an old email address. And so we got it out. If I would have had it earlier, I would have had this done by the last meeting. Okay. And the second thing, and so you know, and I'll preface this as we go, you notice I've got a request for the same budget, the same funding as we did last year. When I first came onto this job last year, and I told my board, my primary focus is going to be job creation and brick and mortar investment. Okay, that is going to be my primary focus. I will tell you that's what it's been. And it's easy to say that. And the only thing in the end that counts is results. I got to tell you that coming off last year was a rough year in terms of coming off that COVID. I had a number of projects pull back on me because of a variety of reasons, not the least of which was the cost of construction. Went through the roof. I had a project in Knapp. The guy told me, he said, Bob, he said I had budgeted for $500,000 worth of stainless steel, and he says it's coming in at $1.5 million, you know. And so anyway, but be that as it may, I still went and even though I get involved in some other things, I'm on the Dunn County Housing Authority Advisory Committee, and those things that I think I can bring some value and important, but are important. There's a lot of other things I don't get involved with simply because I don't have the time and they're not my primary focus. Among the things that we're working on right now, and as an example, we've got Marin Foods and Storage Vault LLC located now south of Menominee, Menominee Township actually, and they are working. It's closed. It's a done deal. And they are working desperately hard to get that set up so they can move that distribution system in there. What happens with these projects often, and this is what's happening here, is these guys are already now talking about some expansion. And in fact, the owner flew in from New York last week. I met with him last week, and he's going to be coming in, I think this coming week, wants to sit down and talk with me and some other people, along with the collaboration of another company about building a manufacturing facility here. And believe it or not, we're actually talking about, for a variety of reasons I can't go into, but we're actually talking about a potential Boyceville location in this case. That would be a big deal for us. Okay. I've had a lot of other projects, and I've got so many that come at me sometimes. So forgive me if I seem like I'm stringing this along, but in the end, the only thing that counts is the results. I've got a company now from a small company, manufacturing company from Kentucky I'm working with right now. They want to move the operation up here. I've got them looking at space in Knapp. I have got, I mentioned this, I think even the last time, a software company with which I've been working a lot. And they've developed and I did a lot of work for these guys on the premise that they would locate here. What's called SaaS, software as a service, like Netflix and Zoom, but these are essentially security software programs, if you will. And in fact, I had a conversation with the primary developers just this past weekend, and it looks like they may be ready to pull the trigger as early as later this month or in August. So I'm still high on that. I had this medical device company with which I was working, and this was a system that was designed and built by researchers and doctors out of a major medical university that's still on the table, still potentially looking for funding. And I bet you I've worked with 25 smaller businesses all across the county. In fact, to be honest with you, some of them out of the county, providing support for their application of the bounce back program, $10,000 grants. And in every case, they've gotten one. And I've got a couple, in fact, I worked with one just last week, and I got a couple more that are out there that are coming at me. But I've got to get another, and I'm just going to give you some sense, by the way, for some of the things that we do that are important to these companies to get them here. As an example, with this distribution company, and even before they committed to coming to Dunn County, they were asking me, and Bob, we're in desperate need of short-term storage, and they had certain requirements. Can you help us find it? I'll tell you what, I couldn't find it in Dunn County. Did find them space. Wasn't in Dunn County, but it didn't matter. It fit their needs, and it gave them an indication of what we'd be willing to do and how we work with them. And now they're committed and they're moving in here. Okay. And it looks like they're going to expand. I've got another distribution company out there, and in fact, I talked to the developers late last week, or it might even been this weekend. They're waiting for the funding to drop. If they drop, that's a big deal. Okay. And so I helped put some stuff together to secure that, and that's done. I've got another project on the table right now I've been working desperately hard at. And this is a high-tech precision tool company. I was approached by a third-party independent consultant firm, and about the possibility of locating here. This is a really good company, and they're looking for 10 or 20,000 square feet with a 20,000 square foot expansion possibility. We're looking at some high-tech, high-paying jobs, and this is a really good deal. What I'm trying to do is put something on the table for them that they can't get anywhere else, period. And one of the things I'm doing is working with the Greater Menominee Development Corporation, the possibility of the GMDC putting up a building and we'll structure a capitalized lease back to this company. And it'd be a 5-year lease with a 5-year buyout provision. And so I've been working really hard to get that done. But as I went through it and I met with the GMDC and I saw what their financial muscle would be, if you will, and I got all these other things together, I discovered I had a $500,000 financing gap on this project, and I wasn't going to lose this project because of that gap. So I was committed to finding a way to fill that. I worked with the Regional Loan Fund. I worked with some of my people within my equity network, which wasn't a real good solution, but it was a possible solution. I was looking for some subordinate financing because I had to be aware of what the commercial loan to value limits were, and typically at best they're 80%. So anyway, the bottom line was I had a $500,000 gap. I was aware of an organization headquartered in Milwaukee. It's a public-private partnership. It's a real estate investment company, but they have certain requirements to make these investments. I never worked directly with these guys, but I knew people who did, and I talked to them about it. And they said, you got to structure things certainly. So I did. And then I got in contact with them, been moving forward with them, had to supply them a lot of information, had to lay this out in a way with the financial statements that would demonstrate that it worked. As late as yesterday with this company in Milwaukee, we're talking about moving toward a term sheet. That's a big deal. That means then that in fact, now if I can keep everything together, we'll get that company here. And it's a tech park company. Okay. But if we can get them here, it would be great for this company. We're going to put something on the table that's going to be hard for them to refuse. It'd be great for the tech park. It'd be great for the community. And it would be great for the GMDC because it's going to give them an opportunity to grow. So, I don't know what else to sit here and say, except that I've got these coming at me all the time. And if what I'm hoping and what I'm asking for is that we continue to get the county funding, even at the level that we got. I'm not going to ask for any more, but we continue to get that county funding because we are starting to get some results, and I wanted to demonstrate those. And I'm hoping that you can see your way to approve our funding request so that we can continue to move forward. Any questions from anybody? Let me know. I'd be glad to answer anything.
Does anybody have any questions for Bob before we begin discussion? Supervisor Vogel?
Thank you, Chairman. I was wondering, is there any criteria that we make sure the jobs that are created are high enough paying that people are above the poverty line?
Yes, and yeah, in fact, yeah, and the jobs, and I actually, in most cases, and I will do the pro forma financials on these to ensure that, in fact, number one, they're credible opportunities. But secondly, I build in, if when I get to that, I build in a labor rate that's well above the poverty line. I don't typically work with anything that pays minimum wage jobs. And if in fact they come to me, I don't turn them down, but I'll be honest with you, I don't work real hard on them. I've had a couple of come to me that were that way. And like I said, I don't say no. I mean, it's not in me to turn down any opportunity here, because there is a role in some places for those type of jobs. But I don't put a lot of effort into luring those people here. And all of the projects that I mentioned now, they're decent, and in fact, in some cases, very high paying jobs. And I don't know if that answers your question, but I work that way in that regard.
Okay, thank you. And one other question, since we were talking about broadband earlier, do you work with the internet service providers or let them know of any of the grants that are out there, or do they?
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah, and I don't mean to laugh, but I've certainly worked with everything from Bloomer Telephone to Mosaic to 24/7 to all of them that service this area. And in fact, worked really hard last year to try to get, and I've met with all of them, and worked really hard with all of them on certain grant applications, which required to some degree at least some participation, some public participation, and worked really hard with the townships and in particular the county in order to try to secure. In this case, it was participation from the ARPA funds. I had some success. We didn't have anywhere near as much success as we would have liked. Okay, but yeah, and if any of them approach me now, I'll go to bat for these guys 100%. Is that, and does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Supervisor Quinn?
I was looking through the report, Bob, and on the, must be the third page, when your second list of projects, number one was a recent industry that came into the county that the EDC helped. What business was that?
That was Marin Foods and Storage Vault LLC on the south end. Okay, there.
Well, that's Marin Foods again. Okay,
that is correct.
That's the same one you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're committed. They're done. In fact, I met with them the week before last. And the owner flew in from New York. Okay. And one of the things, by the way, I'm just going to offer this too. I've connected with the firm, and I wasn't familiar with them at all, but they've come to me, what I find is that they'll work with businesses to access potential tax credit funds from the CARE Act of 2020, and that what I found out is that a lot of companies qualify for a lot more than they thought, big time. In fact, and I know some even in Dunn County. One of them who I met with last week, he said, I had no idea, Bob, I would qualify for those kind of funds. And some of them are in Marin Foods. Well, I should say, some of them are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, even some in the millions of dollars. If you know any businesses that you think might want to at least explore that, have them call me. Okay, I'll at least get it on the table and see whether in fact they might qualify for these additional tax credits. And I'll put them in touch with people who have already gotten them. Okay. So if there's anybody out there who wants to do it, have them give me a call. Okay.
Yes.
You see that we had, you say 20 businesses got the $10,000 storefront grant?
Oh, yeah, yeah, probably. I bet you I'd done that at least 20.
What kind of outreach did you do to advertise that program?
Oh, I don't advertise it personally. I'll be honest with you, Tom. I don't. I haven't done anything with the exception. Well, that's not absolutely true. There's a lot of businesses, people who I'm talking to, and these are all small. Okay.
I know.
All small. And I say, listen, if you're going to interested in doing this, let's take a look at see if we can qualify for the bounce back program. Okay. I've done that. I haven't formally put out any advertisement.
So what kind of assistance did you give people? You said you worked with them.
Oh, yeah. And as an example, last week, and I had somebody who called me, I forget who this was, but she was starting a business or moving a business into some vacant space. And what I do is they'll ask me, what do we need to do to qualify for a grant? So I'll forward them the information that they need. I said, here's what I need from you. I need you to verify this information and provide me this. Okay, and once I get that back, then I'll put, and it makes sense to me, then I'll put together an acknowledgement and support letter for the Regional Business Fund.
So mostly it's support letters.
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay, and is that true for the broadband grants too? Kind of, they are require, or they like support letters from.
Oh, they like, yeah, and again, I'll go to bat for these providers. You know, I mean, and you even last year you saw, you know, what we did. Or I'll meet with these guys. Like I said, I've met with every one of them, talked with all of them to some degree. Okay.
Anybody have any additional questions for Bob?
Oh, just a question about the financial question, Bob. When I look through the projected income for 2022, I guess it's your budget. I guess this is right. This sheet here. Yeah.
Yep.
There are according to this, you're projecting that this year 4 entities will provide funding to support the EDC. The county, the city, the tech park, and the village of Colfax.
Oh, yeah, and there's others that I haven't gotten in there. Okay.
Who are they?
I think Wheeler participated and sent us. I think Knapp may have. I don't remember if Boyceville had. I'd have to go back and look at all the detail.
I think so.
Yeah.
What are you doing to?
And we got some private support too. You know,
from who?
From the contractors, Ross as an example. I expect XL Energy.
It's not on here.
Yeah,
I mean, I think the county would like to see that there's an active effort by the EDC to build partnerships, because I think the intention of the EDC, the way it's structured, is that it's not just a public entity; it's a community-based entity. That
and there is. It's like,
what are they? I mean, maybe I'm missing it, but I don't see very much of that.
Now let's see.
I understand that we sort of had a year where we didn't do anything, so that would fall off. But it seems like since it's so important to get that.
Well, it might be that when I put this together, I didn't have all those others in there. It might have been what I had at that time committed. Tom, I don't remember.
Okay.
But no, we
so
did.
Then I'll ask the question. So what would your strategy be for improving that in the future?
What I did, same thing as I did last year. Okay. And it was probably about this time of year. I put out a letter. I'll bet you I sent it to probably 130 different entities or people or communities throughout the county, requesting and what I offer is an opportunity to become I don't know if it's the right term, a member of the Dunn County Economic Development Corporation at certain levels. Okay. And to provide funding in that regard. And that's what I expect to do this year. So I did it last year.
But it sounds like, Bob, that's kind of maybe not a very effective way to do it. It seems like, if you want, I mean, you tell me, but would seem to me that it's like recruiting businesses. If you're going to recruit a business, you just can't send them a letter and say, here's what we can do. As you said, you put a lot of work into the one-to-one contact with them, building relationships. So it does seem like if we're going to, especially since they haven't contributed for a while, that if that's, I mean, if we're going to have a budget that's going to be sustainable in the future, that has to happen.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Okay.
And so that's going to take a effort. Feels to me like it's going to take an effort by the EDC, both the board and the staff, to reach out personally to these people.
In my defense, I'll say, I work alone,
Yeah, I know.
And I have to tell you, working on these businesses and these projects consumes, because I'll do a lot more for these companies than anybody else would, and I've had a number of them come to me and tell me, Bob, you guys are head and shoulders above anybody else with whom we've met. Like this precision tool company, and the same thing with the distribution company. I'll acknowledge that, I have to do that. I was actually going to do it earlier this year, but I got so tied up with trying to get some of this stuff done and trying to work with these guys to get them funded that, I agree with you. I don't disagree with that, Tom. Okay.
I mean, it seems like strategically there are some, even a handful, that gave fairly good size amounts in the past that don't know. How often? I really appreciate getting the report and the numbers. How often does the EDC board meet?
Once a month.
Okay. And do they have a monthly report that they get, or is it a quarterly? How often do you update the financials for them? How often do you update the financials for them?
Every month.
Every month?
Every month. Yeah, I go through it, and I have to do that. I mean, I have to reconcile everything. Yeah, every month.
Okay.
And they get a financial report every month. Okay. And Tom, and you're right. I don't disagree with that. I'll have to acknowledge that probably. Let's just say that you're right. Okay. I won't disagree with that.
I understand you're working part-time, and that takes a lot of time to work with. It's just it feels like the long-term success depends, in my mind, as much upon recruiting through businesses as it does in maintaining, the partnership in the community.
Yeah.
And that's, so anyway.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
Any more questions for Bob before we discuss? No. Thanks, Bob.
Okay.
So we've had a funding request for 55,000, which I think is the same level that we did last year. All right, let me think how I'm going to say this. Economic development is a critical part of what this county should be doing, and attracting new business. And there should be something that we're doing. I don't know that what we're doing now is working. Having talked to people who have been involved with the EDC over the last couple of years, I spent a bunch of time over the weekend having a lot of discussions about this. That if you look at what some of the surrounding communities or counties do, and I'll use Chippewa County as an example, they run circles around Dunn County, and there's really no reason why that should be. They're not on the interstate. they're a little bit more inaccessible to get to. They have rail lines that come through there. But Dunn County is closer to the cities. It's right on the interstate. It's served by two main railroads. We should be eating their lunch, and we're not. And I look at what Chippewa County does with like their annual meeting they have every year. And I actually end up working with them producing videos for their meeting. They get the governor to attend their annual meeting every year. It says a lot for what they're doing, and we should be doing the same thing. Talking with other people who have been involved with our own EDC, it would really take a level of funding for our county to be, if the county is funding the EDC, to be successful way beyond the means of this county. We're kind of in a catch-22 situation. We need to have economic development in this county, but at the same time, we really can't afford to foot the bill ourselves. So I'm not sure where that leaves us. I don't know that the way things are now, that even spending $55,000 toward the same thing is an effective use of funding, because I don't have that confidence. So I want to open it up for discussion from the other supervisors here to see what your thoughts are as far as this funding request, where we're functioning here with the county, and what you think based on just some of the stuff that I just said. Supervisor Bjork.
Oh, boy. I sure know a lot about this, but I'll tell you what I do know. I do know that the group that Tom works with in West Central Regional Planning, and I think they're probably as good at anybody at doing this than there is, from what I've read. But I take you back to that page 9 or whatever it was, where it showed how much development had been in neighboring counties versus Dunn County. And I don't think that West Central Regional failed Dunn County. There's got to be another reason. There's got to be a reason that would fall in the line of financing available. There has to be something in there that includes housing available for people that would work at these jobs. There's got to be something in there on land space development. There's got to be something in there in that is the county pro-business or not pro-business? Are we asking them to do things that make it more expensive for them to be in Dunn County than someplace else? So my whole thing on this is that from what I've seen, I don't think they're doing the job, and they're probably not doing the job because they're not funded well. But I think it goes deeper than that. And I don't know if Tom have any comments on the West Central Regional on why those other counties were 5 and 10 times greater than Dunn County. I don't know.
Yeah, I think in fairness to everybody involved in economic development in Dunn County, it has been a difficult slog because we had a director who did a good job but got ill and was laid up for a couple of years, really, without the ability to really do his job as he wanted to do it. And then we had and I think that hurt us a lot, and it hurt in terms of maintaining the contacts with the programs that regional had. And I know regional planning has felt like in recent years, the outreach from Dunn County to their programs, and from Dunn County to our businesses with regard to their programs, has been less active than counties like Chippewa or Eau Claire have been, and Barron have been. And I think part of that is just circumstances, and part of it is, you know, we need a stronger economic development corporation. I mean, part of it, Larry, is that we have one of the unique situations, which is an issue in Dunn County, is that we have two economic development corporations. We have a Menominee-based corporation, which has more participation from institutions and business, and then we have Dunn County, which has less resources in terms of loans and that sort of thing. It's most other counties don't have that split. They have one entity. I think Eau Claire might, but I even there, I think they have just one entity. So that's a bit of a problem. But I think it speaks to the point of we really don't have a good strategy, and we're throwing money at a strategy that the staff and the board is trying to make work, but it's right now it's problematic. You know, maybe it'll change, but yeah. I wonder if I mean, Mr. Chairman, you spend a lot of time, you said, talking about it to people. Do you have I mean, my thought is that it's somewhat difficult in the context of a budget hearing in this committee to make decisions about the future of economic development in Dunn County.
Right.
But I mean, does it make any sense to do what we did, sort of like, it's not really punting, but to do what we did several years ago and say, we recommend the county allocate a certain amount of money towards economic development, and then engage with the various partners to figure out exactly how we would spend that?
Well, the only problem with that at that time was that's not what this committee decided. That we had made a decision to fund the EDC at the time at a certain level, and then the executive committee decided to insert their own funding.
They stripped that funding.
They stripped it, and actually at the time, County Manager Miller had designated funding for the Greater Menominee Corporation, which our committee objected to.
Right.
Because it was like, what was the point of voting on that as a committee when that's not at all what we had voted on? So then it came back to the committee as being that the committee could then spend it towards economic development. As this committee sought to spend it. And one of those expenses was toward the Visit Dunn County website, as was part of that allocation of those funds.
Right.
I don't, thinking about it now, I don't think that that's necessarily a bad idea, being where we're at, because I think we're kind of between a rock and a hard place. We kind of realize that we need to do something, but what we're doing now is not really working. And like, as you said, Supervisor Bjork, as you're talking about the regional planning, that if they're not supporting business and as much stuff in Dunn County, it's kind of like a chicken and the egg thing. If they're not getting as much request or direction from our county to do that, then they're not going to then kind of support us or support business as much, because they're kind of like, they're not getting directed to do that kind of stuff or do it enough from our county. So this is, I knew this was going to be a horrible discussion, especially after my conversations this weekend.
Yeah.
And in fact, one of the people I was talking to said, I don't envy your discussion at your meeting. So it's like, I don't know what the good thing is to do here, whether having this existential conversation about economic development is appropriate when we're strictly just
Dealing with a budget issue.
just dealing with a budget issue, and whether that's an issue that we want to, put on as an action item on next month's agenda. But then in the meantime, still deciding, what we want to do with this particular funding request. Whether we want to deal with the funding request, whether it's something that we even want to,
So I see what you're saying. Yeah. It's hard. It's always hard to separate these things in one's head, isn't it?
well, it is, it's hard to separate them, but they are tied together.
So let me try and untie the knot. Maybe I don't think it works, but I'll try it. Maybe a process or a pathway would be to, because I think the county board okay, so maybe the pathway towards giving the county and the opportunity. We are going to have a new county manager who has said in their interviews for the job that they want to recognize the critical role that economic development plays in addressing the budget issues of the county and the growth issues of the county.
Right.
So one possible way to deal with this would be to table the budget request, but forward a budget recommendation that an amount of money be set aside to be allocated for economic development by the board and administration. I'm trying to figure out a way out for you.
Well, I like that idea. Do either of the other two supervisors have any thoughts about that?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I don't like spending other people's money. And I really don't like spending my money. And I wouldn't spend my money on this.
Mm-hmm.
And
on the budget item,
on the whole thing. I wouldn't spend, I'm not in favor of continuing with Dunn County Economic Development Corporation. And part of that comes from the fact that, we've got supposedly at Stout, all kinds of geniuses coming out of there that are going to create big changes in the world, and they have their technology park, and they're promoting their space, and we're going to give you good people to work there. And then the other thing is, and this is kind of a personal thing, I've been everywhere. I have been everywhere. I've been in Georgia and Tennessee and Mississippi, where a plant is 20 miles out of town, and you got to go through a 1-lane bridge to get to it. But some economic development guy apparently brought that plant to that area, and it doesn't fit. It just doesn't fit. And then you get into the Midwest, and every level piece of ground, we're going to take half of it and cover it with concrete and buildings. And then we're going to provide all these jobs for people. But you live in kind of a industrial community. And I don't like the industrial communities. Years ago, when I was on the Menominee School Board, I happened to go to a national convention in San Francisco and at the big event center out there and everything. And we had some real progressive people on the board, which fine and dandy. I mean, that's, you know, that's their term for themselves. And got back in the airport and got on the shuttle and got back to Menominee. And the comment was, my, is it nice to be back in quiet little Menominee? So I don't know. I don't know if you want to take half of the town of Red Cedar and turn it into economic development. You know, Prochnow will sell you lots of land at $10,000 an acre or better to put in anything you want out there. I'm kind of the fact with I don't want to spend other people's money on something that doesn't seem to be working. So I'm not going to support.
What about Supervisor Quinn's idea of basically setting aside or coming up with an amount that we can budget towards economic development to be spent on some way of developing it? And some of those issues that you're talking about can be some of the stuff that is, you know, potentially addressed where it's not urban sprawl and you know, pavements and parking lots all over everything. There's plenty of land that's already been designated in the industrial parks it's not developed. So there shouldn't be any reason to go beyond the land that's already been designated for that, not only within, you know, the two basically the Menominee parks, but also there's space in Colfax and in Boyceville and those areas that don't have to be like you're talking about, a single lane, you know, bridge going into Rock Falls where there's a
Right.
there's a car factory or
Right.
something like that.
Exactly.
So I mean that's, you know, potentially something that could be addressed, but you know, kind of bringing back the idea of, you know, if you don't feel that dedicating money to this makes sense, what you had stated is a kind of acknowledging the fact, and both Supervisor Quinn and I were in the meetings with the new potential county manager, and what had come up with all of the interviews was how important economic development was to the county, how until we get some of that evaluation up in the county, we're kind of stuck as far as like funding and other aspects like that. So we've got plenty of designated industrial land that could be developed that isn't being developed, that's already designated that way. So
Well, I wouldn't spend my money at it, and I don't want to spend this money at it. And
You're in it.
I know. And the thing is, what knucklehead is going to say, I don't support economic development? Well, maybe that's me. I mean, there's got to be one in every crowd, right?
Well,
I mean, let the smart people go ahead and make those decisions. I can't see where it's money well spent.
yeah.
So I want to just respond in general to your
Yeah.
comment. So last winter, I attended something called the Wisconsin Rural Economic Summit, which is partly sponsored by Extension. And one of the speakers was somebody I've known for a while, but his name is Steve Deller. He's a extension economist. And he gave a presentation on the strategies for economic development in rural areas. And he talked about four waves of the different sort of strategies that have evolved in the last, say, 40 years. And they start with, you know, sort of just looking for the big business and providing the subsidies, and then they go move on to cluster development, and then they move on to value added development or something like that. And he said now what people are realizing is in all those things. But the thing that seems to be most relevant to the modern economy is something he called developing a sense of place. In other words, that you want economic development. The best kind of economic development in this climate is economic development that reinforces the very things that you find positive about living here. And that's what you're seeing in communities that are successful. That's what you're seeing. Well, those strategies, we should be looking at those strategies. And if doing business the same old way will get us at some of that, but not all of it. So if we set aside, if we say, look, we think it's important to put money aside for economic development so that we can, as a county, step back and look at those things. And maybe what we'll say is, we want the Economic Development Authority to focus on, to take this money and do different things with it. But at least there will be a base of funding in place from the county that can bridge that. If we don't do that, then we're just we won't have those discussions. We will, I think, miss out on some possible future benefits. So, my thought is, we don't have to endorse doing this same old way of doing business, but we should endorse some kind of a support for economic development, and understanding that it has to engage a discussion in the community, and has to engage the Economic Development Corporation, perhaps even. But
I wish I would have been able to see what you're talking about, because it sounds really geared towards this county more than anything else, and especially the overall consensus that preserving what makes this county great to live in is key to that economic development. So, because if you develop the county and it changes it, people don't want to live here at that point. Supervisor Vogel, you've been silent. Do you have any thoughts on the discussion?
Yeah, so I find that the UW Extension had that meeting very interesting, because it sounds like we have so many groups looking at it, but I don't know if there's anyone coordinating. So we have the West Central, we have Greater Menominee, we have Dunn County, and apparently the Extension. And then does the Wisconsin Economic Development also provide support for businesses? Yeah. So, and then, there's also Stout has the Discovery Center that supports businesses. So I don't know if there's some coordinated effort, but I don't know how that happens, and it's not really funding related. And I worry that if we put aside this money and we don't have like a plan for it, it might get later in the year, and then like what do we do with it? Does that make sense? So because how do we decide where the amount might go?
That's what our committee would have to do.
Right. But when we had the 10,000, it took us quite a while
right.
to decide. So I'm not sure what kind of
a great idea.
Yeah, it was a good idea. So
but I'm not sure how we determine where the money should be spent. But I agree that having and I don't know if we have a smart growth plan. Like, is there a plan of where businesses can go in the county to keep, a lot of it rural and a great place to live? And I think that's very important. And I don't know if sustainability is a part of that plan, because I keep thinking if businesses could work together to kind of support each other or make things more sustainable when they're located kind of next to each other. But So yeah, I worry we have this pot of money, but it'll be difficult to decide where to go with it. But maybe I'm overthinking it.
No, we should overthink it. So Supervisor Quinn.
Well, so I think the problem I have with voting against the budget request is that I do think we need the Economic Development Corporation to be a part of any solution, any future plan that we have. And I think if they lose our money right now, next year, and we don't, then they will. I don't see how they can survive. And on the other hand, if they aren't willing to make some changes, they're probably not going to survive either. So my thought was, if we table the budget request, that still leaves open the relationship with Dunn County for potential for discussion and consideration. And then we put in the budget and we request allocation of a certain amount of money in the budget. There would be resources there in the event that we are able to address the concerns. And it gives the corporation the opportunity to say, yeah, well, let's get this, let's figure out a way to work better on this.
I don't know if this is, if it's possible when you, if the county funds a portion of the operations, if that can be specifically allocated towards something, or if that's not kosher.
Why wouldn't it be kosher?
I don't know.
No, seriously, what?
Yeah.
What? I mean, we make that kind of decision all the time, I think.
I would be more inclined to do that if then this committee decided, okay, we're going to direct some money, but we want it oriented toward these specific tasks or processes, or implementing some of the things that were learned in the extension, talk about rural economic development, something it's kind of along the lines what you're saying is, okay, we're going to set aside some funds for economic development, and then we're going to decide how we want to spend that, whether it all goes towards the Economic Development Corporation, whether it goes toward partially towards that, toward something else that fits the because like from when I heard just some things like the like the Greater Menominee Corporation, I guess has a lot of money and they don't need our funding or anything like that. So and we need to do something that supports Greater Dunn County and not just Menominee proper. So
I think
I knew this was going to be such a fun discussion today.
Yeah, I don't want to just kick the can down the road either. I mean,
I know,
but sometimes that's the best thing to do. You know, you just got to catch up to the can after you kick it.
Right.
So, I mean, you know, when we requested money, well, anyway, I do think that whatever economic development strategy we decide to fund and support in the future, it will require some kind of a public-private partnership like the Dunn County Economic Development Corporation. So what we'd be doing by tabling the budget request is saying, we don't not support you. We don't support this particular strategy for a variety of reasons, not just, and it's not an effective strategy, not anyone's fault in particular. And so we want to set aside some money, and if you're interested, we will welcome your participation in helping us figure out if there's a role that you could play in spending that money.
I like that idea, actually.
Well, I'll make that motion. First, I guess, what do you think? A motion to table or is that, I think it's sort of a formality, but it's like, feels to me like it's what we're doing, kind of. We're tabling it.
We are.
Yeah.
Right.
So I make a motion to table the budget request to a future meeting.
Any
table action on the budget request to a future meeting.
Any seconds on tabling the budget request? You don't want to table it? You want to?
I'll
take it up?
second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yeah,
Okay.
I still think it's a bad idea. I been on this committee long enough to see budget requests come from places that we should support. And you can take your pick of the Mabel Tainer. You can take your pick of the Colfax Railroad Museum. You can take your pick of mothers that need help learning how to raise their children. And I would spend that money on quality of life issues and not hoping something happens issues. So, this can pass without my support, but I've just seen too many good programs get washed away from county funding. And this is just hope it works type money, in my opinion.
Okay. That's any other discussion? So all of those in favor of tabling this budget till a future meeting? I think that's the motion, right?
Yep, that's it.
Say aye.
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 All opposed? Ayes have it.
Then I would move that we request that the board consider setting aside, what was this?
55?
Let's say the same amount of money for consistency purposes, $55,000 as a budget item to support our community development efforts in the county.
Community or economic development?
Economic development, yeah.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? You said your piece. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. So that'll be on next month's agenda as well. Okay. Let's move on to, I see this as 7C, but I have no idea what it is. So perhaps Michelle can enlighten me about the 4-H program finances.
Yes, the last page of the packet did have a staff report I put together. The nitty-gritty of it is the Wisconsin 4-H financial management policy has been updated. And now the policy says that 4-H membership dues are to be collected by the 4-H educator, where previously in Dunn County, they were collected by the 4-H Leaders Council, who is a group of volunteers. So this brings it into the control of an employee and then brings that risk and liability into the extension. instead of having volunteers in charge of those membership dues. So what we are working towards is adding a revenue line and an expenditure line into our fiscal year 23 budget. And so we are asking that you support the plan that these funds every year, if they are not fully spent, will be carried forward because they are 4-H program funds. And according to the top paragraph here, the federal code of federal regulations, these funds are to be used to support 4-H educational programs, activities, workshops, and supplies. So we're just asking support for that plan to do a yearly carry forward.
Do we need a motion on that or?
We would like that so that it's on record.
I'd make that motion to have the educators receive the funds instead of the Leaders Council.
Second.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And it passes. Thank you. I want, this meeting's going on for a long time, so I want to just touch briefly on the PR aspect. Oh, and by the way, just to get one of the things that you had mentioned about the programs that we should be supporting and that we're not. I think that's why, you know, we're kind of focusing on economic development, is we want to see some of that, the appropriate businesses expand here so it increases that tax base from companies so that we can bring some of those worthy programs back that we've unfortunately, and so that we can support the Colfax Railroad Museum. I just want to touch briefly on the county communications and PR. I did have a real nice discussion with Doug Mell, who used to work at UW Stout, and his company does a lot of this for some surrounding counties and organizations, and he and I are actually going to have a meeting next week. So I want to bring that back and talk a little bit more about that at next month's meeting.
Good.
And then next meeting date is Tuesday, August 9th. It just says August 9th. I'm assuming it's Tuesday. So are there any announcements?
Question.
Yes.
For Michelle, could you give an update on Farmers Night Out money that with the vouchers that were available to people to attend the fair?
We currently have 74 people registered. So I have one single season pass and gift certificates available. Once we do reach that 75, people will be able to continue to register to be entered to win one of the 40 door prizes we have.
Excellent.
Nice.
Quality of life. Go to the Dunn County Fair.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Any other announcements? If not, meeting is adjourned.